First contact under fire. Sarah Chen knew she was in trouble when the cargo hauler's navigation system started displaying cascading errors. The bitter irony wasn't lost on her. She turned down 3 lucrative shipping contracts to take this safer route through the Carina sector. Now, surrounded by a field of tumbling asteroids and watching her ship's systems fail one by one, that decision felt like a cosmic joke. Warning: primary guidance offline. Backup systems compromised. The ship's computer announced with artificial calm. The asteroid field stretched endlessly before her, its rocks backlit by the crimson glow of a dying star. Her small ship, the Swift Courier, creaked ominously as another chunk of space rock grazed the hull's shielding. The impact sent tremors through the command chair, and Sarah's knuckles whitened as she gripped the manual controls. "Computer, scan for nearest safe harbor," she commanded, her voice steady despite the growing dread in her stomach. The response came after an uncomfortably long pause. Scanning. Stellar Medical Station 6 detected. Range: 0.7 light hours. Caution: current trajectory requires correction. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. A medical station meant advanced facilities, and more importantly, a safe dock. All she had to do was thread her way through the asteroid field with failing systems and reach it before the backup power gave out. Simple. The next 20 minutes were a blur of constant course corrections and near misses. Sarah's world narrowed to the viewport, her hands on the controls, and the increasingly urgent warnings from her chip's computer. She almost missed the first sight of Stellar Medical Station 6, a gleaming silver structure that resembled a massive snowflake, its crystalline arms spreading out from a central hub. That's when everything went wrong. A previously undetected asteroid, no larger than a ground car, struck the Swift Courier's port side. The impact sent the ship into an uncontrolled spin, and Sarah's head slammed against the command console. Through blurring vision, she saw the medical station growing larger, spinning in and out of view. Emergency broadcast initiated. The computer announced. Station approach vectors compromised. Impact imminent. Sarah's last conscious action was to divert remaining power to the emergency landing systems. The station's docking bay swam in and out of focus as her vision darkened around the edges. The final impact sent her world into darkness. Dr. Zixval was reviewing patient files when the emergency alert sounded throughout the station. The Araxian physician's head frills rippled in response to the sudden commotion, a biological tell that betrayed concern despite years of medical training. Emergency landing in progress. The station's AI announced. Unknown vessel. Single occupant. Medical response team to Dock 7. The doctor's 6-fingered hands moved swiftly over the medical console, already preparing for potential casualties. The security feed showed a small human cargo vessel, heavily damaged, being guided into the emergency dock by the station's tractor beams. Life signs, Zixval asked, already moving toward the turbolift. One detected. Unstable. Species, human. Multiple trauma indicators. The doctor's frills flattened, a sign of focused concentration. In all his cycles of medical practice, he treated fewer than a dozen humans. Their biology was considered primitive by galactic standards, lacking many of the basic genetic improvements common to spacefaring species. The emergency response team was already cutting through the ship's hull when Zixval arrived. They extracted an unconscious human female, her leg bent at an unnatural angle. The doctor's medical scanner hummed as it assessed the damage. Multiple compound fractures detected. The scanner reported. Recommended treatment. Complete synthetic replacement of affected bone structures. Zixval nodded. It was the standard treatment across known space. Remove damaged bone. Replace with superior synthetic materials. The procedure was so routine that most medical stations could perform it automatically. Prepare Surgery Suite 3, he instructed the medical team. We'll begin synthetic replacement once the patient is stabilized. As they moved the human to emergency care, Zixval noticed something odd on his scanner's display. The fractured bones were showing unusual cellular activity. He adjusted the scanner settings, frills twitching in confusion. "That's not possible," he muttered, watching the readings. "No species can." The doctor's bewilderment would soon turn to amazement, though he didn't know it yet. This routine emergency landing was about to challenge everything he thought he knew about medical science. Sarah Chen woke to the soft hum of medical equipment and the peculiar sensation of being watched. When she opened her eyes, she found herself surrounded by a circle of alien faces, all staring at her with various expressions of scientific fascination. Their head frills rippled in synchronized waves of blue and green, reminding her of sea anemones caught in an ocean current. "The patient is conscious," announced Dr. Zixval, his translator converting the melodic Araxian speech into standard Galactic. "Please maintain biosecurity protocols until we understand what we're dealing with." Sarah tried to sit up but found herself held in place by a medical field. Her attempt to move revealed another discovery. She couldn't feel her right leg at all. "My ship?" she managed to ask, her throat dry. "Your vessel is undergoing repairs," Dr. Zixval replied, moving closer to study the medical readouts. "Though I must say, your physical condition is of greater concern at the moment. We've detected some highly unusual activity in your damaged limb." The doctor's frills shifted to a deep purple, a color Sarah would later learn indicated deep professional concern. He manipulated a holographic display, bringing up a three-dimensional image of her fractured leg bones. The break sites glowed with an angry red light. "I don't understand," Sarah said, watching the assembled medical team exchange worried glances. "It's just a broken leg. Nothing that won't heal on its own." The translator struggled for a moment with her words, and the resulting statement caused such a stir among the medical staff that several of them began speaking at once, their frills flickering rapidly through various colors. "Heal on its own," Dr. Zixval repeated carefully, as if trying to identify a translation error. "Are you suggesting this damage would repair itself without synthetic replacement?" Sarah nodded, then realized the gravity of the situation. She'd heard that most spacefaring species had evolved or engineered away many of the biological processes humans took for granted. On Earth, my homeworld, broken bones naturally knit back together over time. It's a normal healing process for us. The medical team's reaction was immediate and intense. Several began taking readings with handheld scanners, while others huddled around the holographic display, pointing at various indicators Sarah couldn't understand. "Impossible," stated one of the younger doctors, her frills pale with disbelief. "Natural bone regeneration on this scale isn't possible in complex organisms. The energy requirements alone." And yet, Dr. Zixval interrupted, adjusting the holographic display. "Observe the cellular activity at the break sites. These readings suggest active osteoblast production and mineral deposition. It's unlike anything in our medical database." Sarah watched as the alien doctors debated amongst themselves, their discussion becoming more animated by the moment. She caught fragments of translated terms: primitive healing mechanisms, unprecedented cellular response, potential contamination risks. "Look," she tried to explain, "this is completely normal for humans. We break bones all the time as children while we're learning to move around. They heal, we recover, life goes on. It's not some mysterious process." Dr. Zixval's frills shifted to a color she hadn't seen before, a deep iridescent gold that seemed to ripple with curiosity. "You've experienced this process before?" he asked, mandibles clicking with interest. "Broke my arm falling out of a tree when I was 9. Sarah replied with a slight shrug. "Cast came off 6 weeks later. Good as new." The medical team fell silent, their frills now moving in slow, contemplative waves. Dr. Zixval turned to his colleagues and spoke in rapid Araxian that the translator didn't catch. When he turned back to Sarah, his expression was one she would come to know well, the look of a scientist on the verge of a paradigm-shifting discovery. "Ms. Chen," he said carefully. "Would you be willing to allow us to document this process? What you consider normal may well revolutionize our understanding of biological healing mechanisms." Sarah looked around at the eager faces of the medical team, their frills now shimmering with barely contained excitement. She thought about the long recovery ahead of her, stuck in an alien medical station, while her body did what came naturally to it. "Well," she said with a slight smile, "it's not like I'm going anywhere for a while." The medical station's observation room had become Sarah Chen's new home over the past week. Through the transparent walls, she could see teams of alien doctors constantly monitoring her progress, their frills dancing with excitement every time they detected new cellular activity in her healing bones. Dr. Zixval stood before a holographic display, manipulating three-dimensional images of her leg's bone structure. "Fascinating," he muttered, his translator barely catching the word. "The calcium deposits are forming precise structural patterns. There appears to be some kind of biological blueprint guiding the process." Sarah shifted on her bed, trying to find a comfortable position. "That would be DNA," she explained, not for the first time. "Every cell contains instructions for how our bodies should work, including how to fix themselves." A young Araxian medical student named Peltix approached with a covered tray, her frills shimmering with nervous energy. "I brought you something," she whispered, glancing around to ensure none of the senior staff were watching. "I researched human dietary requirements. You need calcium for bone formation, correct?" Sarah lifted the cover to find what appeared to be a glass of milk and several calcium-rich foods from Earth. Her eyes widened in surprise. "How did you get these?" "The station's synthesizers can replicate most organic compounds," Peltix explained, frills turning a pleased shade of pink. "I thought it might help the healing process." Dr. Zixval turned from his display, noticing the exchange. His frills rippled with what Sarah had learned to recognize as amusement. "Peltix has been studying Earth's medical archives extensively," he explained. "Though I must admit, the concept of consuming minerals to repair bone structure seems remarkably efficient." Sarah took a sip of the synthesized milk, finding it nearly identical to the real thing. "When I was 12, I broke my wrist skateboarding. My mother practically forced milk down my throat every day until it healed." "You've experienced multiple healing cycles?" Peltix asked, quickly pulling out a data pad to take notes. "And each time, the bone restored itself to full functionality?" "More or less," Sarah nodded. "The doctor would set the bone, put it in a cast to keep it stable, and nature did the rest. Sometimes it aches a bit when it rains, but otherwise, you'd never know it was broken." The medical team's frills all shifted to that now familiar shade of disbelief. Dr. Zixval manipulated the holographic display again, highlighting the active healing sites in her current injury. "In most spacefaring species," he explained, "severe bone damage requires immediate synthetic replacement. Natural healing mechanisms were engineered out of our genetic code centuries ago, deemed inefficient and unnecessarily time-consuming." "Seems like a step backward," Sarah commented, reaching for what appeared to be a calcium-enriched protein bar. "What happens if you don't have access to synthetic replacements?" The question caused a ripple of uncomfortable colors to pass through the medical team's frills. It was Peltix who finally answered, her voice soft. "That's why this discovery is so important. Remote colonies and frontier settlements often lack advanced medical facilities. If we could understand and potentially reactivate natural healing processes." "Speaking of understanding," Dr. Zixval interrupted, his frills suddenly alert. "The latest scans show something extraordinary. The bone isn't just healing, it's adapting its structure to better withstand similar stresses in the future." He expanded the holographic image, highlighting microscopic changes in the bone density patterns. Sarah watched as the medical team crowded around the display, their frills shifting through shades of amazement and scientific excitement. "It's like watching evolution in miniature," one of the doctors whispered. "The healing process isn't just repairing damage, it's implementing improvements based on the type of stress that caused the break." Sarah smiled, remembering something her old Earth doctor had told her. That's why broken bones often end up stronger at the break site than they were before. Our bodies learn from the experience. Dr. Zixval's frills turned that deep, iridescent gold of scientific curiosity. Ms. Chen, he said, manipulating the holographic display once more, I believe you're going to help us rewrite several textbooks on regenerative medicine. Looking at the eager faces surrounding her bed, Sarah couldn't help but wonder what other aspects of human biology they might find surprising. Perhaps being stuck in an alien medical station wouldn't be so boring after all. Breaking medical science. News traveled fast in the galactic medical community. 2 weeks after Sarah Chen's emergency landing, Stellar Medical Station 6 had become a hub of scientific activity. Doctors from dozens of species crowded the observation room, their varied physiologies creating a rainbow of colors, textures, and appendages as they vied for position around her bed. Dr. Zixval stood protectively near Sarah's monitoring equipment, his frills rippling with a mix of pride and concern. A towering Mendaxian physician, her crystalline body refracting light across the walls, gestured at the latest bone scans with multiple appendages. Impossible, the Mendaxian declared, her crystalline form vibrating with skepticism. No biological system could maintain such precise mineral organization. Without technological assistance, there must be some form of nanomedicine at work. Sarah suppressed a sigh. It was the 5th time today she'd been accused of using hidden technology. I assure you, Doctor, this is completely natural. No nanomachines, no synthetic aids, just normal human healing. A spherical quantum intelligence unit hovering near the ceiling interjected, its translation matrix producing perfectly modulated speech. Historical data supports the human's claim. Analysis of Earth's medical records shows consistent documentation of natural bone regeneration across their species development. Dr. Zixval manipulated the holographic display, highlighting the progressive healing patterns over the past 2 weeks. Observe the systematic cellular reconstruction, he said, his frills showing determination. Each stage follows a clear biological progression that would be impossible to fake. The gathered medical experts burst into heated discussion, their various translators creating a cacophony of overlapping languages. Sarah caught fragments of debate about evolutionary efficiency, biological energy consumption, and the possibilities of replicating the process in other species. A quiet voice cut through the chaos. May I ask a question? It was Peltix, the young medical student who had been bringing Sarah carefully researched human-compatible meals. When the room quieted, she continued, if this ability is natural, why did humans never engineer it to work faster? Sarah smiled at the young Araxian. We did try to improve it, but every time scientists attempted to speed up the process artificially, they ran into complications. The body has its own timing, its own way of making sure everything heals properly. Sometimes slower is better. The Mendaxian physician's crystalline form flickered with what might have been surprise. You're suggesting that biological systems could be more sophisticated than our engineered solutions. Not more sophisticated, Dr. Zixval interjected, his frills showing excitement. Different. While we focused on replacing damaged systems, humans retained and refined their natural repair mechanisms. Both approaches have merit. The quantum intelligence unit descended slightly, its sensor arrays focused on Sarah's leg. Proposition: human healing mechanisms represent an alternative evolutionary path to medical resilience. Query: could this explain their species' survival despite limited technological advancement? The observation room erupted in new discussions. Sarah watched as various medical experts formed small groups, debating the implications of human biological capabilities. Some were already discussing potential applications for frontier medicine, while others argued about re-examining primitive biological systems for overlooked advantages. Dr. Zixval turned to Sarah, his frills showing a color she'd never seen before. A deep, midnight blue with swirls of silver. Your accident may have triggered a revolution in medical science, he said quietly. Are all humans as resilient as you? Sarah thought about human history, about broken bones mending on battlefields and in distant settlements, about children bouncing back from injuries that would permanently disable other species. "We had to be resilient," she replied. "We didn't have any other choice." The doctor's frills rippled thoughtfully. "Perhaps," he said, "that was an advantage we never considered. Sometimes necessity breeds remarkable solutions." Looking around the room at the assembled medical experts, Sarah realized she'd become more than just a patient. She was a bridge between two different approaches to medicine, one built on technological advancement, the other on biological adaptation. As she watched the animated discussions continue, she wondered what other surprises human biology might hold for their galactic neighbors. Her leg chose that moment to itch beneath its stabilizing field, reminding her that regardless of its scientific significance, healing was still an uncomfortable process. Dr. Zixval sat in his private research chamber, surrounded by holographic displays of ancient space explorer logs. His frills flickered with growing excitement as he translated account after account of early alien encounters with humans. The stories had been dismissed as exaggerations or misunderstandings, but now they painted a compelling picture. "Computer, highlight all references to human recovery from physical trauma," he commanded. The system obliged, illuminating dozens of passages across the floating documents. A gentle chime announced a visitor. "Enter," he called, not looking away from his research. The door slid open to reveal Sarah Chen in a mobility field, her healing legs suspended in a gentle anti-gravity bubble. "The medical team said I'd find you here," she said, maneuvering carefully into the room. "Peltix mentioned you've been researching human medical history for 3 days straight." The doctor's frills rippled with slight embarrassment at being caught in his obsession. "These accounts are fascinating," he said, gesturing to the displays. A human soldier continuing to fight after sustaining multiple fractures. A colonist walking 3 days with a broken ankle to reach help. A space miner surviving explosive decompression long enough for rescue. Sarah floated closer to examine the records. Those sound like survival stories. When humans are pushed to their limits, we sometimes surprise ourselves. "That's just it," Dr. Zixval said, his frills dancing with revelation. "Your species never engineered out their survival traits. Every time you faced hardship, your bodies adapted naturally instead of relying on technological solutions." He manipulated the displays, bringing up detailed genetic analyses. "Your DNA contains repair mechanisms that most species discarded millions of years ago. We thought we were advancing by replacing these systems with more efficient technological solutions. But you lost something in the process," Sarah concluded, beginning to understand. She reached for one of the floating displays, reading an account of early human space exploration. "Our primitive biology forced us to be resilient." The doctor nodded, his frills showing deep purple bands of concentration. "We've been analyzing your bone healing process at the molecular level. The cellular organization is incredibly sophisticated, far more complex than our synthetic replacements." He brought up a new display showing microscopic images of her healing bone tissue. "Your body isn't just replacing damaged material. It's analyzing the break pattern, reinforcing weak points, and improving the overall structure. It's like having millions of tiny engineers working in perfect coordination." Sarah smiled, remembering her high school biology classes. "That's all controlled by our genetic code. Instructions passed down and refined over millions of years of evolution." "Exactly." Dr. Zixval's frills flashed brilliant gold. "While we were programming synthetic solutions, natural selection was programming your cells. Both approaches solved the same problem, but yours has the advantage of being self-contained and self-replicating." He pulled up another display showing comparative healing rates across different species. Most spacefaring races can replace damaged bones in hours using synthetic materials. But those replacements never truly integrate with the body. They don't adapt, don't improve, don't become part of the living system. "And human bones do?" Sarah asked, fascinated by this new perspective on her own biology. "They do more than that," the doctor replied, his frills rippling with excitement. Each healing process makes the bone stronger, better adapted to prevent similar injuries. It's a continuous improvement system that operates at the cellular level. Sarah watched as he compiled his research findings, his frills shifting through shades of scientific revelation. "You're going to publish this, aren't you?" "With your permission," he said, looking up from his work. "Your accident could change how we think about medical treatment across the galaxy. Sometimes the most advanced solution isn't the most sophisticated one." She nodded, thinking about the implications. Her simple broken leg might help bridge the gap between natural and synthetic healing, between evolved and engineered solutions. As she watched Dr. Zixval return to his research, his frills dancing with enthusiasm, she wondered what other lessons human biology might teach their galactic neighbors. The doctor's next words confirmed her thoughts. "Perhaps it's time we learn to look backward to move forward." The medical bay's monitoring system chimed softly as Sarah Chen took her first unassisted steps in 3 weeks. Dr. Zixval watched carefully, his frills shifting between shades of professional concern and scientific amazement as his patient moved with increasing confidence. "The bone density readings are remarkable," he said, studying the real-time scans. "The healed sections are showing higher structural integrity than the undamaged areas. Your body has actually improved upon the original design." Sarah paused her careful pacing to catch her breath. That's normal for human bone breaks. The body over-engineers the repair, just to be safe. She smiled, remembering something. "My old doctor used to say that broken bones heal stronger because they remember what hurt them." A surprisingly accurate metaphor, the doctor replied, his frills showing bands of deep thought. "We've documented similar reinforcement patterns in all 6 human patients who have arrived this week." The medical station had become something of a pilgrimage site for injured humans seeking traditional treatment. Word had spread through the spacer community about a place where they could heal naturally, without synthetic replacements. "Speaking of new patients," Sarah said, gesturing toward the observation window, "how's the mining crew doing?" Beyond the glass, 3 human miners recovered from various injuries sustained in an asteroid belt accident. Instead of the standard synthetic replacements, they were being treated with a revolutionary combination of traditional human medical practices and advanced alien monitoring technology. Dr. Zixval's frills rippled with pride. Their healing rates are exceeding expectations. The targeted nutrient supplements and regeneration field calibrations are supporting their natural healing processes remarkably well. A soft alert sounded, and Peltix entered the room carrying a datapad. Her frills showed excitement as she approached. "The latest scan results from the miners are ready," she announced. "The micro-fracture patterns are following the same reinforcement protocols we observed in Sarah's case." The doctor examined the results, his frills shifting to that now familiar shade of scientific fascination. Each break is healing slightly differently, adapting to the specific stress patterns that cause the injury. It's as if their bodies are learning from the experience. Sarah completed another lap of the medical bay, her stride growing more confident. "That's the advantage of biological systems," she said. "They can adapt to individual circumstances. No one-size-fits-all solution." A concept we're only beginning to appreciate, Dr. Zixval admitted, his frills showing humility. "Our reliance on synthetic solutions may have blinded us to the sophistication of natural healing processes." Peltix, who had been studying Earth's medical texts extensively, added her own observation. "Human medical practices often focus on supporting natural healing rather than replacing it. Their doctors learn to work with biology instead of overriding it." The doctor nodded, manipulating a holographic display of treatment protocols. "We're already implementing these principles in our new hybrid healing program. Advanced monitoring and support technology, but letting the body's natural processes take the lead." Sarah watched as he adjusted the healing field around her leg, fine-tuning it to support her body's natural repair mechanisms. The sensation reminded her of sunlight on her skin, gentle, warming, encouraging rather than forcing. "Your accident has sparked a minor revolution in medical science," Dr. Zixval said, his frills showing mixed colors of pride and amusement. Some of my colleagues still insist that synthetic replacement is more efficient, but they can't argue with the results we're seeing. Sometimes slower is better, Sarah replied, completing another lap. Especially when it means the healing becomes part of you, not just a repair job. The doctor's frills rippled with agreement as he documented her progress. Around them, the medical station hummed with activity as more patients, both human and alien, began exploring this new approach to healing. It represented a bridge between worlds, a recognition that advanced technology and natural processes could work together rather than in opposition. Ready to try the stairs? Dr. Zixfall asked, his frills showing encouraging colors. Sarah nodded, feeling the strength in her healed leg. Each step would be another small victory, another piece of evidence that sometimes the oldest solutions were still the best ones. Nature, it seemed, still had plenty to teach them about the art of healing. The Stellar Medical Station's main lecture hall buzzed with anticipation as representatives from across the galaxy gathered for Dr. Zixfall's presentation. Sarah Chen sat in the front row, her fully healed leg a testament to the revolutionary treatment protocols being discussed. The integration of human biological healing mechanisms with advanced medical technology represents more than a new treatment approach. Dr. Zixfall began, his frills shimmering with professional pride. It challenges our fundamental assumptions about medical care. The holographic display behind him showed a time-lapse of Sarah's healing process, alongside data from dozens of subsequent cases. The audience watched in fascination as broken bones knit themselves together, guided by their own biological intelligence. For centuries, we believed that technological replacement was the pinnacle of medical achievement, he continued, his frills rippling with passion. We were wrong. Nature had already developed sophisticated repair systems. Our role should be to support these processes, not override them. In the audience, a Mendaxian physician raised a crystalline appendage. But surely the time factor remains a concern. Synthetic replacements can be completed in hours, while biological healing takes weeks. Sarah stood up, having anticipated this question. As the station's newly appointed human medical consultant, she'd become accustomed to addressing such concerns. Time isn't the only measure of success, she said, walking confidently to the stage. A naturally healed bone becomes part of the living system. It adapts, strengthens, and contributes to the body's overall resilience. Synthetic replacements, while quick, remain foreign elements that never truly integrate. Dr. Zixfall's frills showed approval as he brought up new data. We've documented cases where naturally healed bones prove more durable than their synthetic counterparts. Moreover, the healing process triggers beneficial changes throughout the surrounding tissue. Peltix, now a resident physician specializing in xenobiology, added her own findings. The principles we've learned from human healing have applications beyond bone repair. We're seeing promising results in soft tissue regeneration and neural recovery across multiple species. The presentation continued, showing case after case of successful treatments using the new hybrid approach. Patients who would once have received immediate synthetic replacements were now healing naturally, supported by carefully calibrated medical technology. But perhaps most significantly, Dr. Zixfall said, his frills shifting to that deep iridescent gold of discovery, we're learning that each species has retained some degree of natural healing capability. These dormant mechanisms can be reactivated and supported with the right approach. The audience erupted in discussion, translators working overtime to keep up with the excited exchanges. Sarah watched as medical professionals from across the galaxy debated the implications of this new paradigm. A quantum intelligence unit hovering near the ceiling contributed its analysis. Statistical modeling suggests a 43% improvement in long-term patient outcomes using the hybrid healing protocol. Additional benefits include reduced dependency on synthetic materials and increased biological resilience. Dr. Zixfall manipulated the holographic display one final time, showing a map of medical facilities now adopting the new treatment protocols. What began with a single emergency landing has grown into a movement. We're not just healing injuries, we're bridging the gap between natural and technological approaches to medicine. After the presentation, Sarah found herself surrounded by medical professionals eager to learn more about human healing processes. She caught sight of Dr. Zixval's frills showing a new color, a gentle silver that seemed to reflect the light of scientific progress. "Did you ever imagine," she asked him quietly, "that a broken leg could lead to all this?" The doctor's frills rippled with gentle amusement. "In medical science, Ms. Chen, the most significant discoveries often come from unexpected places. Your accident reminded us that progress doesn't always mean replacing nature. Sometimes it means learning to work with it." Around them, the medical station had become a symbol of this new understanding. In the treatment wards, patients from dozens of species were healing in ways that honored both their natural biology and the advantages of advanced technology. "We're walking between worlds," Sarah said, watching a young Araxian doctor explain Earth-style cast maintenance to an alien patient. "Finding the best of both approaches." Dr. Zixval's frills showed agreement as they observed the future of medicine unfolding before them. Sometimes, it seemed, you had to break something to make it stronger. 6 months after her emergency landing, Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of Stellar Medical Station 6, watching ships arrive from across the galaxy. Each vessel brought new patients and medical professionals, eager to learn about the hybrid healing protocols that had revolutionized galactic medicine. "The latest statistics are quite remarkable," Dr. Zixval said, joining her at the window. His frills shimmered with contentment as he reviewed his datapad. "Natural healing success rates have exceeded all projections. Even species that abandoned biological repair mechanisms millions of years ago are showing signs of regenerative recovery." Sarah smiled, remembering her own healing journey. "How's the human medical exchange program going?" "Extraordinarily well," the doctor replied, his frills displaying bright bands of satisfaction. "We've had requests from over 300 medical facilities seeking to establish similar programs. Earth's medical universities are sending their first group of xenobiology students next month." The station had grown significantly, adding new wings dedicated to research and treatment. In the main medical bay, doctors of various species worked alongside each other, combining traditional healing knowledge with advanced technology. Peltix, now head of the xenobiology department, approached with excitement showing in her frills. "The first results from the frontier colonies are in," she announced. "The simplified hybrid protocols are showing a 97% success rate, even with limited technology." This had been one of the most significant breakthroughs, developing treatment methods that could work in remote locations without access to advanced medical facilities. The combination of natural healing and basic support technology had brought hope to countless frontier settlements. "Remember when everyone thought I was infected with some strange parasite?" Sarah asked, watching a group of medical students, human and alien, studying healing protocols together. Dr. Zixval's frills rippled with amusement. "We've come quite far from those days. Though I must admit, watching your bones heal themselves for the first time was rather unsettling." A soft chime announced an incoming transmission. The station's holographic display activated, showing a 3-dimensional map of known space. Dozens of points of light indicated medical facilities now implementing the hybrid healing protocols. The Galactic Medical Council has officially recognized natural regenerative medicine as a primary treatment option, Dr. Zixval announced, his frills showing proud colors. They're recommending all medical facilities maintain both synthetic and natural healing capabilities. Sarah watched as more lights appeared on the map, new facilities joining the growing network of hybrid medical centers. It's amazing how something we took for granted on Earth has changed medicine across the galaxy. Perhaps that's the greatest lesson in all of this, the doctor replied, his frills shifting to thoughtful hues. Every species has something to teach if we're willing to learn. Your primitive healing abilities showed us that advanced doesn't always mean better. Through the viewport, a medical transport arrived carrying patients from a distant mining colony. Once, they would have received quick synthetic replacements and returned to work. Now, they would heal naturally, their bodies growing stronger through the process. The next research phase looks promising. Peltix added, reviewing her own data. We're seeing evidence that other human biological processes might have similar applications. Your immune system responses are particularly interesting. Sarah laughed. Just wait until you learn about how humans fight off viral infections. Dr. Zixval's frills showed immediate scientific curiosity, but before he could respond, another group of medical students approached, eager to learn about Earth's natural healing processes. As Sarah began explaining the basics of human biology to the fascinated students, she reflected on how far they'd come. Her accidental landing had bridged a gap between worlds, between nature and technology, between different approaches to healing. The station had become more than a medical facility. It was a symbol of how different species could learn from each other, combining their knowledge to create something greater than the sum of its parts. Sometimes, Dr. Zixval said quietly, his frills showing that deep iridescent gold of discovery, the most advanced civilization is the one that remembers its roots. Sarah nodded, watching the endless stream of ships arriving at the station. Each one carried the promise of healing, of learning, of growing stronger through adversity. Just like a broken bone, their understanding of medicine had been damaged, and healed stronger than before. The future of galactic medicine was evolving, one patient at a time, proving that sometimes the best way forward is to look back and remember what nature had already perfected.